My husband, Jack, gave Andy Prenmark a job after he got a lot of money from his family. He said to me, "I don't need to stay with you anymore. I'm getting $5 million. I don't need you when I have all that money." His words were cold, and it felt like he was ending our marriage after being together for a long time. I felt like I was just in his way, but Jack doesn't know yet about the big secret connected to the $5 million he's inheriting. "Mom, is it true that Grandpa is really sick?" My daughter Sophie surprised me with her question. Jack's dad, Ethan, being very sick was supposed to be a secret between Jack and me. "Did you hear that from your dad?" The only one who could have told Sophie is Jack. "Yes, Dad called and said I should give up Grandpa's money." Sophie's words made me worried. Just because of that one phone call, my peaceful life was going to change. A few days after Sophie's call, Ethan passed away quietly. Since I got married, I've lived with Jack's parents, and I've always been there to help them when they were sick. It's been 5 years since Jack's mom died, and now we got the news about Ethan. The funeral went smoothly, but just when I thought things would calm down, my husband's behavior changed a lot. "Why is this place so dirty? Have you not been cleaning properly?" Jack keeps pointing out tiny bits of dust and small stains. "I'm sorry, maybe I missed it. I'll clean it right now. This place doesn't look clean either." "Are you sure you clean every day?" "Yes, I clean like I always do. Even though I clean like usual, I don't understand why Jack is so mad. But it seems like it's not just about cleaning." "Why did you make this? I wish you'd think more of how it tastes when you cook. It's tough when the meals I put effort into get criticized one by one. Even the dishes he used to love are now not good enough. Is something bothering you lately?" I finally ask, but it seems to make him even more upset. There's no point denying it. "Honestly, the food you make isn't good. I've been putting up with it because my parents never complained, but I've always thought it lacked flavor." Jack's words hurt me deeply. It's the first time he's criticized me so harshly. When Jack was this upset, I knew saying anything would just make it worse. My mom always cleaned and did laundry perfectly, and when she cooked, she put so much care into it. "You're nothing like her. I've been patient, but I can't take it anymore." It was the first time he compared me to his mother and criticized me. All I could do was think hard about myself. "I'm really sorry. I never thought he didn't like my cooking." Jack always used to smile and say it's delicious when he ate. When we first got married, his mom gave me cooking tips. It's hard to believe he always thought my cooking was bland. Tears started to flow. "Do you think crying will change anything? Your tears don't mean anything now. Don't cry in front of me. Everything lately just feels so hard." After he said that, Jack suddenly got up and left the house, slamming the door. "Jack, where are you going? Please come back." But he didn't seem to hear me. My head was spinning, trying to understand this sudden change, unable to grasp what had just happened. Until a few months ago, we were a close couple, sharing everything, holding hands, enjoying the little things in life together, and facing small problems as a team. I couldn't understand why we had grown apart. Then, I remembered what Sophie had said during our call. "It's about Grandpa's inheritance." Sophie's voice sounded unsure. That night, Jack came home much later than usual, and I didn't get the chance to ask him about it. Was something going on? Maybe Jack had learned something about the inheritance and didn't want to talk about it. I tried to talk to Sophie about it. Why are they talking about the inheritance while Grandpa is still healthy? She had her doubts about Jack and told me she had shared them with him. If things stay the same with the inheritance, I'll get everything. Considering Sophie, I think this is the best option. Remembering how Jack had been distant with Sophie lately, I started to have doubts. The thought of Jack taking all the inheritance and leaving me behind made my chest feel tight, and tears filled my eyes again. In my sadness, I noticed the sounds around me more vividly. Just as the room went quiet, the phone suddenly rang loudly. I didn't feel like answering it, but it could be important. Looking at the caller ID, I saw Jack's name, the same Jack who had left earlier. I felt drained, but I didn't want to face any consequences for ignoring the call, so I reluctantly picked up. "What are you doing? Don't make me wait." "I don't have much time," he said in a commanding tone that caught me off guard. He could be stubborn sometimes, but he wasn't the type to yell without a reason. Feeling surprised by his sudden change in behavior, I let out a small sigh, hoping he wouldn't notice. "What's wrong? Is something the matter? I wanted to talk to you about something." "I'll be home soon. Stay there and wait for me." Jack's voice sounded colder than usual lately. I just replied with a quick okay and hung up. When I looked at the clock, more than 3 hours had passed since Jack left. I had been crying so much, feeling confused and hurt, that I hadn't noticed the time passing. After a while, I heard the door open and Jack's footsteps. A sweet smell, a body wash we didn't have at home, drifted from him. That unfamiliar scent made the pain in my chest worse. I'm going straight to work. I want to end our relationship. As a thank you, I'll give you $220,000. His words confirmed my worst fears. Even though I had feared it, facing this reality was still shocking. I felt like I couldn't cry anymore. I'm tired of you not taking care of things at home. I want to live peacefully as I get older. Linda had also hoped for a peaceful old age, but it seemed like Jack was the one ruining that dream. Why? My words trailed off as I tried to find something to say. Jack looked at me with a smug smile. Then suddenly, Jack's phone rang with a loud ringtone. It was a tone I didn't recognize, different from his usual one. To me, it felt like the strange sound hinted at communication from someone specific. I'm sorry, but I haven't finished my errands yet. Linda sensed a hint of softness in Jack's voice, different from his usual tone towards her. It felt somewhat gentler and more personal. Plus, with the sweet scent of body wash lingering in the room, the unfamiliar ringtone from earlier, and the change in Jack's demeanor, it all hinted at something he might be hiding. I knew it, Linda whispered quietly so Jack wouldn't hear. His affair was becoming too obvious. Considering the inheritance he might get soon, the alimony might not matter to him, even if his cheating comes out. After finishing his call, Jack looked at Linda with cold, emotionless eyes. My plans haven't changed. I need you to sign this document. I'll be in touch later. Make sure it's signed by then. I won't be coming back to this house. Remember, this house is now yours. Without saying another word or even looking at her, Jack headed towards the door. What did our 40-year marriage mean? A few days later, Linda found herself at a lawyer's office, gathering information about Jack's actions and Ethan's inheritance. She explained everything to their daughter, Sophie. Sophie's expression changed. It was painful for Linda to admit their mistakes to their daughter, but Sophie, out of love for her mother, cried and then resolved to confront Jack. She even introduced Linda to a lawyer to help them through it. "Hello, I'm Robinson. I'll be handling your case. I'll do my best to support you," said the woman named Robinson, sitting across from me. She seemed to be in her late 40s, radiating a calm presence. Her tidy hair and professional attire gave off a sense of professionalism. Her clear way of speaking made me feel reassured. "I'm Lily Johnson. I'm sorry for reaching out to you so suddenly. I'm a bit nervous since it's our first meeting in these circumstances," I said. "That's okay. Sophie has already given me some information. She briefed me on the situation, so I can discuss it with you calmly," replied Mrs. Robinson. After researching and gathering information both by myself and with Mrs. Robinson's help, we confirmed some facts. My husband doesn't have any siblings, so if Sophie gives up the inheritance, the big fortune, around $5 million, will all go to him. Also, he started an affair with a woman named Jennifer at a bar they visited, and it seems their relationship lasted about 6 months. I was curious about what happened between her and my husband. I admitted to Mrs. Robinson during our joint investigation. Together, we uncovered an important fact that my husband might not know yet. "Linda, how do you intend to proceed from here?" Mrs. Robinson asked me gently, her eyes soft and understanding. "Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I deeply appreciate it," I replied, smiling gratefully at her. After paying the fee for the procedures and exchanging a few words, I quietly left her office. 5 days later, I got a call from Jack on my cell phone. He suggested meeting at a quiet cafe. I arrived a bit early, and the cafe was surprisingly empty. The owner welcomed me warmly and said I could sit anywhere. I chose a seat by the window to enjoy the peaceful view outside. After a while, the bell on the door rang, and I saw Jack and his new girlfriend, Jennifer, walking in. When Jack saw me, he smirked proudly. "Are you ready for the divorce?" he asked bluntly. I was taken aback by his first statement. It seemed like he was convinced he was in control of the situation. "Is this your new partner?" I hadn't expected him to bring her to such an important discussion, and I was surprised by his decision. I wondered if he was still the man I once loved deeply. Had he changed because of his cheating, or was he always like this? I couldn't tell. "You're Jack's wife, right?" "I'm Jennifer. I've recently started seeing him, she said, suddenly smiling. I couldn't quite understand the meaning behind her sudden smile. I've heard a lot about you from Jack. Seeing you in person, you do look a bit older. I wonder how Jack put up with all these years. I feel a bit sorry for him. Jennifer seemed to take great care of her appearance. She looked much younger than her actual age, which was in her 60s. Compared to her, I might look my age, but I couldn't accept the way she said it. Jennifer, it's those kinds of comments I warned you about, Jack interjected. But yes, I did think that. But Jack, if it were me, I would cherish you more, I said softly. I understand, Linda. I don't want you to overthink it anymore. I just want you to file the divorce papers, Jack said, his attitude not surprising me. Hold on, there's something I need to discuss, I said, noticing a hint of confusion on Jack's face. What do you mean? Is this about your father's inheritance? Is that why, after all these years of marriage, you're making this decision? I wanted to know the truth behind everything. I fail to see how my father's inheritance and you are connected. That's solely my father's affair. I've heard detailed stories about your father's extensive inheritance from Sophie. I know its value. So what? That inheritance isn't for you to claim, Jack retorted. But I'll answer. Actually, more than the inheritance itself, the end of caring for my parents is one of the reasons I want to part ways with you. Just a caregiver role, I couldn't believe Jack saw me only as a caregiver and not the loving wife I used to be. I don't even have the energy to cry. Can we speed this up, Jack? I want to start our new life. Besides, have you still not let go of Jack? Anger and sadness hit me in waves. My hand trembled as I took a deep breath and pulled out the divorce papers. But my name isn't written yet. The situation isn't settled for me to hand them over. You remember promising me the house and money, right? I remembered our conversation clearly. Yeah, I did say that. I'm a man of my word, so I plan to give you the house and money. You say you're kind, but a truly kind person wouldn't just use their wife as a caregiver and then abandon her. So I'm demanding rightful compensation of $30,000 and the rights to the house, I said firmly. What compensation? When we talked about money, it was supposed to be $20,000. You always nitpick at the very end. Your attitude of trying to pay me the absolute minimum is so obvious. But the difference of $10,000 means a lot to me, Jack retorted. So I think $30,000 as compensation is fair. Your girlfriend is Jennifer, right? I thought of claiming from her too, but instead, I want to settle for $330,000. And I intend to sign the divorce papers right here in front of you. Jennifer unexpectedly commented, first suggesting that $30,000 would be okay. Jack, pay it if you're satisfied with it, she added. With Jennifer's statement, Jack finally agreed to the alimony of $30,000. Now we need Jack's signature on the land title change document Mrs. Robinson prepared and the notarized alimony agreement, I said calmly, surprising Jack with my preparedness. We lined up our seals at the designated spot, and Jack smiled as if he anticipated something. So Linda, will you sign the divorce papers right now? He asked. Understood. Here's the divorce paper, I replied, carefully writing my name and firmly stamping it. Jack couldn't hold back his laughter and laughed out loud again. With this, you and I no longer have any relationship. Also, I have something to tell you. Actually, I'm set to inherit $5 million, so I didn't need someone like you. Thanks for the divorce. What a foolish ex-wife you had, letting go so easily for just $30,000. Jack sneered as I left, followed by the loud laughter of Jack and Jennifer echoing. I hurriedly left and headed to City Hall. My only goal now was to complete this procedure as quickly as possible and sever ties with the two of them completely. They might be laughing happily now, but I wondered how long their happiness would last. A month later, I sold the house I received from Jack, prepared for a new life, and decided to live near my daughter Sophie, who planned to start her life near her husband's parents' home. Despite my concerns about Jack's mother living nearby, Sophie's husband warmly welcomed me and was always considerate, which reassured me greatly. My daughter Sophie initially seemed angry at Jack's actions, but when I shared a certain fact with her, her expression completely changed and she smiled brightly. I had a hunch that Jack would soon realize my plan. As evidence, I deliberately didn't change my mobile number. The day my intuition became reality came sooner than expected. From the afternoon, my phone rang repeatedly, and sure enough, it was Jack. He called many times, but at first, I purposely didn't answer. After receiving repeated calls, I finally picked up. "Hello, why are you doing this?" I couldn't hide my surprise. "What's the matter?" "You called out of the blue." Jack raised his voice. "What's the problem? Where are you right now?" I thought you might have visited our old house. But in reality, that house had already been sold. Since we've decided to divorce, there's no me for you to be involved with anymore. Where did Sophie go? I can't find her. It seemed he went to Sophie's old house. Of course she wasn't there, and I handled all the information and procedures related to Sophie's husband's family home. So Jack had no way of knowing. He seems to have hit a dead end and contacted me. Hey guys, I'm Ellie. I want to share how I escaped a bad situation. My husband Luke has always been really close to his mom. At first it was fine until I met Nora, my mother-in-law. She was awful to me, not just mean, but abusive. When Luke and I were dating, she did everything to break us up. But we stayed together and got married. Nora didn't like that at all. Even when we were happy together, she didn't stop. Things got worse when she and my father-in-law, Jay, stayed with us for a while. Nora kept trying to make me sick by putting allergens in my food. One time, she managed to give me soybean oil, and I ended up in the ICU, almost dying. That was the last straw for Luke. He used to defend his mom, but after that, he cut her off completely. It became clear to Luke how toxic Nora was when his dad, Jay, divorced her for trying to poison me. Nora claimed she didn't mean to, but no one believed her. We even got a restraining order against her, but our peace didn't last long. For 2 years, Luke and I enjoyed life without Nora around. Then I found out I was pregnant, and we were thrilled. But I worried Nora would find out and cause trouble. The restraining order had expired, and I didn't know how to keep her away. Luke used to be my support, helping me through my fears. But then he started suggesting that maybe we should forgive Nora and let her back into our lives. One day, he even sat me down and said, "Have you thought about what I said, Ellie? Maybe we should try to reconnect with Mom. It's been years. Think about our daughter." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you serious, Luke? Why would I want that? Your mother nearly killed me. How can you think she'll be safe around our child?" "She's my mom, Ellie. I think she's learned from her mistake. Let's give her a chance," Luke urged. "No way, Luke. I won't let Nora hurt me or our child again. I've had enough since the first incident. She's not coming back into our lives, especially not our daughters." "You already knew, Luke. My mind's made up." I was furious with Luke for even suggesting I invite his mom to my baby shower. His sudden interest in Nora only fueled my paranoia about her harming me and the baby. I couldn't believe he'd bring her up like that. Thankfully, it seemed like Luke dropped the issue and agreed to respect my decision. Turns out, I was dead wrong. Luke didn't drop it at all. He not only disregarded my decision, but made things worse behind my back. How did I find out? Well, his dad ended up calling me about it. A few days later, Jay called me and dropped a bombshell. "Ellie, sorry to spring this on you, but did you know your mother-in-law is coming to your baby shower?" "What?" "No, Jay, she's not invited. She's never welcomed back into my life." "Listen, Ellie, you need to know that Luke has invited Nora to your baby shower." I was stunned. I couldn't believe my husband had gone against my wishes like that. I was overwhelmed with confusion and anger. Feeling like I couldn't breathe properly, I said to Jay, "What are you saying, Jay? Luke invited his mom after I explicitly told him not to. He promised he wouldn't." "I know, Ellie. Luke's been in touch with his mom since the restraining order was lifted. I only found out yesterday. I tried to talk him out of it, but he's set on bringing Nora back into your lives." "Luke's talking to Nora again? How could he betray me like this? Is he out of his mind? I'll never forgive him for this." Jay reassured me, "I'll talk to him, Ellie. Nora won't harm you or the baby again. Luke's making a mistake, but I'll try to make him see reason." "I won't confront him about it, Jay. It won't change anything. I want to see if he actually goes through with inviting Nora to the baby shower. If he does, I'll divorce him." I was dead serious. The betrayal by my own husband was unbearable. I couldn't believe he'd willingly bring an abuser back into our lives. At that moment, I realized I couldn't stay with Luke if he went through with it. I'd risked my life once, but now I had my daughter to think about too. There was no way I'd subject myself or her to more abuse. Since Luke had already proven himself untrustworthy, talking to him seemed pointless. I kept what I knew from him. Jay and I kept in touch, keeping each other updated. I was preparing for divorce, consulting a lawyer, and getting papers ready. I needed to be ready in case Luke actually brought Nora to the baby shower. The days leading up to it were stressful. Knowing Luke wasn't changing his mind left me in a bad state mentally. Luke was concerned about me, but I just brushed it off, claiming I wasn't feeling well. Being around him was tough. I felt betrayed. Yet, I never confronted him. I gave him chances to do right, but he didn't. So when the divorce papers arrived the day before the baby shower, I was ready to leave him for good. I was determined to show him the consequences of his actions. When Nora showed up at the baby shower with Luke, I was prepared, though seeing her still sent chills down my spine. I stepped away immediately, asking, "Why is she here, Luke? You promised she wouldn't be." "Oh, Ellie, lighten up. This is supposed to be a happy day. Let's not dwell on the past. The day was ruined the moment you brought your mother here against my wishes. How could you betray me like this, Luke? What choice did I have? You reacted badly when I asked, so I had to invite her secretly. So even after I said no, you sneaked behind my back to invite her? My safety means nothing to you, does it, Luke? Stop overreacting, Ellie. You're being unreasonable. My mom will be a great grandma, I'm sure. You believe your abusive mom will be a great grandma? Do you even hear yourself, Luke? And why are you defending her, Jay? It's been years. You should move on and accept her back. I'm tired of this. Your wife needs to grow up, Luke. Ellie, my son is right. It's time to move on. It's disappointing that you haven't matured, even with a baby on the way. My granddaughter needs a responsible parent like me. Luke, inviting me was the right thing. It seems you two need my guidance. I was stunned by Nora's words. She was actually suggesting she play a major role in raising my daughter. It was beyond belief. No sane parent would allow an abusive person like Nora anywhere near their child. I couldn't fathom Nora's audacity in thinking we'd agree to this. But what shocked me even more was Luke's lack of concern. He seemed to be on board with Nora's plan. I couldn't hold back my disbelief. What are you saying, Luke? Nora, you can't seriously expect us to let you be a big part of our daughter's life. That's not happening, I interjected firmly. Why not? She's my granddaughter, so I have a say in how she's raised, and you'll need someone to watch her, Nora replied confidently. No way, Nora. You'll never babysit my daughter. Luke and I won't let someone like you, who's been abusive, anywhere near her. Forget about that idea, I retorted. Come on, Luke agrees with me. I'd be the best choice to babysit. Given your track record, maybe I should move in after the baby's born, right, Luke? Nora added arrogantly. Luke, you need to address this now. Do you really agree with what your mother is proposing? Are you seriously considering letting her take on a parental or caregiving role with our child? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I desperately hoped my husband wouldn't actually entertain such ideas. Jay had warned me about Luke's renewed contact with Nora, but I never imagined it had escalated to this. Even Jay didn't know the extent of their discussions. As the uncomfortable silence settled among the guests at the baby shower, I wished it was all just a nightmare. But reality hit hard when Luke casually responded, I think you're being unfair to my mom, Ellie. She's a good mother and raised me well. I'm sure she'd make a great babysitter. Are you forgetting she nearly killed me trying to prove my allergies were fake? How can you even consider her for such a role? I shot back, incredulous. Come on, Ellie, don't overreact. That was in the past. You need to let go and move on. Holding on to grudges won't do us any good. She's family, so you should forgive her, Luke replied dismissively. I won't stand by while you force her presence on us. She's staying for the baby shower, and she'll be involved in our lives from now on. My husband's words hit me like a ton of bricks. He was insistent on having his abusive mother in our lives, despite the harm she caused. He seemed blind to the danger she posed, adamant that she'd play an active role in our daughter's life. But that was a line I refused to cross. I couldn't fathom having Nora, this deranged woman, in my life, let alone around my child. It was time for a difficult decision. All the preparations I'd made weren't for nothing, but it was hard to come to terms with. The realization that my marriage had reached this point was heartbreaking, but there was no turning back. I needed to leave this marriage, and I needed to do it now. So without another word to Luke, I calmly retreated to the study, ready to take the necessary steps to leave him. I headed to the study to retrieve the divorce papers I had prepared earlier. My hands trembled and tears threatened to spill, but I held them back. There was no use wasting tears on a man who disregarded my feelings, so I composed myself and returned to the room where everyone was gathered for food and drinks. It felt awkward. Only Nora and Luke seemed at ease, sharing laughter and discussing our daughter's future plans. As I excused myself to the study, expecting Luke to follow, he remained behind with his mother. He likely assumed I was having another outburst and would eventually accept Nora. But he was mistaken. Returning downstairs with the papers in hand, I caught Jay's eye, who sat silently on the side. He seemed to understand what I was about to do and appeared saddened by it. Approaching my husband, who looked puzzled by the papers, and a smirking Nora, I spoke. "You've made it clear that Nora is your priority. You've shown that my child and I would have to compromise our safety to accept Nora back into our lives. Today, you've made it evident that you've chosen Nora over us, Luke." "No, Ellie, that's not what I meant. Please don't misinterpret my intentions. I'm trying to find a way for us all to get along. Mom is my family too, Ellie. You need to understand why I value her presence," Luke pleaded. "You're determined to reintroduce this abusive woman into our lives. Well then, you've made your choice. You've chosen her over us," I replied firmly. "What do you mean, Ellie?" "Here are the divorce papers, Luke. Sign them and return them to me. If you have any questions, speak to my lawyer. It's over." Luke and Nora were visibly shocked when I explained the significance of the papers. I handed them to Luke, arms crossed, as he hurriedly examined them. Yes, I had consulted a lawyer and prepared the papers in advance, ready to leave if Luke thought he could force his mother into our lives without consequence. His hands shook as he confirmed their contents, his expression a mix of disbelief and confusion. "This can't be real, Ellie. Why would you do this?" he stammered. "I prepared the divorce papers because I knew what you were doing. I found out about Nora being invited to the baby shower from your dad." "Dad, you told Ellie I invited Mom to the baby shower?" Luke questioned. "Yes, I did, Luke. Your mom boasted about her imminent return to your life, claiming the divorce was my loss since she hadn't lost her son after all. I had to tell Ellie because you disregarded her and even ignored my advice. I warned you, Luke. You should be ashamed," Jay rebuked. Luke began to grasp the gravity of his actions, though it hadn't fully sunk in yet. I could see the gears turning in his head as he glanced between me and the papers in his hands, visibly nervous. I wasn't the only one who noticed. Before Luke could respond, his mom grabbed his arm, interjecting, "No, Luke, you did the right thing by bringing me back into your life. Don't listen to your father. Jake and Ellie want to keep us apart because they're jealous of our relationship. Oh, there's nothing left to be envious of, Nora. Jay isn't your husband anymore, and I won't be your son's wife either. Congratulations, Nora, you've achieved what you wanted. Your son is all yours now," I stated bitterly. "No, Ellie, please, let's discuss this. You can't leave me like this. You can't spring divorce papers on me like this," Luke pleaded desperately. "Oh really, Luke? I can't surprise you with divorce papers, but you can surprise me by reconnecting with your mother behind my back. You comforted me while I worried about your mom, but all this time you were on her side." Luke started to panic. He hurriedly moved away from his mother and tried to reach for my hand, but I avoided his touch. It was unlike me to reject physical contact, but I couldn't bear to look at him, let alone let him touch me. I kept my distance, which only heightened his anxiety. "You've misunderstood, Ellie. I just wanted us all to be a family again. I didn't mean to go behind your back," he pleaded. "But you did, Luke. You had a chance today when I asked you to make Nora leave, but instead you called me stubborn and immature. You insisted I forgive her because she's family. Well, you don't have to worry about that anymore, Luke, because I'm leaving you. Nora and Jay will be your only family now," I declared firmly. "I can't believe this, Ellie. After what my son did today, I'm deeply ashamed of him. This isn't how I raised him. His loyalty to his mother has clouded his judgment. I can't accept a son who can't discern right from wrong," Jay expressed, his disappointment evident. "Dad, please don't say that. I still need you and Ellie in my life," Luke pleaded, his voice trembling with emotion. "Oh God, this isn't what I wanted," Jay lamented. "You wanted your mom back, Luke, and now you have her. You should be content." Don't worry, I won't keep your daughter from you. You'll have visitation rights as determined by the court, but I won't be your concern anymore. You can enjoy your life with your mom while I provide a safe environment for our daughter," I declared firmly. Luke broke down in tears as he realized the extent of my resolve. Nora stood in a corner, visibly nervous, her grand schemes crumbling before her eyes. She likely expected Luke to coerce me into accepting her back into our lives. But now, it was clear that her son valued me more than her, a fact that unsettled her deeply. Luke, growing increasingly desperate, implored, "Please, Ellie, let's calm down and talk this through. I know I made a mistake, but you need to understand why I did it. Please just give me a chance to explain. I've heard enough, Luke. You've made it clear how little you value my feelings and opinions and how little you care about me and our daughter. You should be grateful I'm allowing you to return to your beloved mother. No, Ellie, you mean more to me than my mom. Please don't leave me," Luke pleaded desperately. "That's rich, Luke. If I meant more to you than your mother, you would have listened to me. There's no point trying to change my mind now. We're finished. You and your mother can leave since this party was organized by my family, who certainly didn't invite Nora. Take your mother and go, Luke." Luke broke down when I asked him to leave. He cried and begged me to reconsider. But when I remained resolute, he turned to Jay, pleading for his intervention. Meanwhile, Nora attempted to justify their actions, saying, "Come on, Luke. Don't act so desperate. You don't need an immature wife like Ellie." "Enough, Mom. Just stop talking. This is all your fault. I never should have listened to you. I let you poison my mind, and now I'm about to lose my wife," Luke retorted. "Now, Luke, don't blame your mom for everything. You made the decision to invite her and defend her. There's no point trying to backtrack now. My decision stands," I reiterated firmly. "No, Ellie, please, don't do this to us. Dad, please convince her to give me another chance," Luke pleaded. "You're on your own, son. You've made a big mistake, and you don't have any grounds to ask for forgiveness," Jay replied, his tone firm. Luke eventually realized the magnitude of his mistake. He hadn't anticipated my immediate departure once he brought his mom into our home. It was likely Nora who assured him that everything would be fine. However, it was ultimately my husband's misguided decision to prioritize his mother over our marriage. Unfortunately for both of them, their plan didn't pan out. I had mentally prepared myself for the worst, allowing me to maintain composure despite feeling sadness and disappointment. I remained strong for the sake of my child. After repeatedly urging Luke and Nora to leave, they finally departed. Along with my thoughts, I experienced a minor breakdown. Fortunately, the presence of supportive friends and family helped me navigate through this challenging time. Although my emotions were mixed, the success of my baby shower provided some solace. Friends and loved ones rallied around me, offering their assistance in various ways. Later that evening, Luke returned, attempting to reconcile with me. However, I made it unequivocally clear that there was no path to reconciliation. Eventually, I proceeded with the divorce. I couldn't fathom remaining with someone who prioritized his abusive mother over the safety and well-being of our daughter and me. The divorce process concluded after our child was born, and despite initial resistance from Luke, it was finalized smoothly. Now, with my daughter at 9 months old, I have embraced my newfound freedom. Although Luke initially struggled with the divorce, his attempts to win me back proved futile. He severed ties with his mother, squarely placing blame for the dissolution of our marriage upon her shoulders. Nora, devastated by the fallout, never anticipated such a turn of events. I'm relieved to report that she has had no contact with my daughter, thanks to Luke's efforts to keep her away in hopes of reconciliation. Occasionally, I receive updates from Jay about Luke's struggles, and while I empathize with his situation, I'm grateful to have escaped a marriage where my boundaries were repeatedly tested and disregarded. In the end, Luke's actions backfired, resulting in the unraveling of his life. I caught my husband in the act of cheating, an experience I never thought I'd have. Most people would likely confront their spouse upon discovering evidence of infidelity, but I stumbled upon the truth firsthand in a setting I never anticipated, surrounded by unsuspecting witnesses. Suspicions about their relationship had lingered in my mind, but nothing prepared me for witnessing my husband's betrayal so publicly. My name is Christina, a stay-at-home mom to a 6-year-old son. On the day of the incident, my husband had a rare day off, and we had plans for a family outing. However, when I awoke, he was already gone. A message informed me he was tending to his feverish sister, and with no one else home, he expected to return in the evening. As the message came through, a heavy sigh escaped my lips. I had promised my son a day of fun at the amusement park, and he had eagerly anticipated it since the day before. I knew my husband had been shouldering a significant workload lately, immersed in a major project for the past 6 months without respite. This day was meant to be a rare opportunity for our family to bond. Instead, he chose to attend to his sister's needs. She supposedly had a fiancé, rendering her capable of managing on her own. Yet my husband's penchant for playing caretaker to his sister prevailed. It wasn't the first time his sister's needs took precedence over our family plans. His fixation on his sister had always unsettled me. He once admitted that he was drawn to me because of my resemblance to her, coupled with my supposedly exceptional qualities. While I acknowledged his sister's beauty and kindness when I met her long ago, being likened to her always left me feeling uneasy. It seemed the highest compliment he could offer, but the underlying implications left me feeling uncomfortable. My husband used to express his desire for both a son and a daughter, often initiating intimacy. However, since the birth of our son, there's been a noticeable decline in our physical connection to the point where it's non-existent now. Considering our youth and my husband's prior enjoyment of intimacy, suspicions arise that he may be seeking it elsewhere. Betrayal is one thing I could perhaps forgive, albeit reluctantly, but what troubles me more is his consistent absence, even on days off like today. Spending time with our child should be a natural inclination, yet he seems indifferent. Our son, deeply attached to his father, becomes distraught when he's absent. Despite ample opportunities, my husband fails to engage with our son, neglecting simple gestures like birthday gifts or attending school functions. Instead, he retreats to his room, engrossed in endless gaming sessions, disconnected from family life. If this continues, our once close father-son bond risks fading into unfamiliarity. I grew increasingly skeptical of my husband's claims about being engrossed in a major project, considering his prolonged absences from home. Seeking clarification, I reached out to a former classmate employed at the same company. Is my husband truly buried in work as he claims? I inquired, a hint of suspicion in my tone. My classmate chuckled before responding, absolutely not. If anything, your husband has earned a reputation as a window-side employee. He appears disinterested and clocks out on time every day. Confirmation of my suspicion sent a wave of realization crashing over me. It aligned perfectly with my observations. Despite purportedly leading a significant project, his modest salary and lack of exhaustion contradicted his narrative. Such inconsistencies only fueled my doubts about his fidelity. Frustration weighed heavily on me as I finished preparing breakfast. Glancing at the time, I furrowed my brow in concern. It was unusual for my son not to be up by 7 a.m., especially since he typically woke early. Now, it was already past that hour, and if we didn't hurry, he'd miss the nursery school bus. Hastily, I made my way to his room to rouse him. Entering his room, I found him still fast asleep. "It's morning, sweetheart. Time to wake up," I called out, expecting a swift response. Instead, all I heard was a strained groan. Alarmed, I reached out to touch his forehead and was met with intense heat. Anxiety surged through me as I gently shook his shoulder, urging him to wake. "Mama, I can't breathe," he murmured weakly, his words sending a chill down my spine. Panic threatened to consume me as thoughts raced through my mind. With news of an outbreak at the nursery school circulating, dread seized me. Could my son be afflicted too? Reports of children succumbing to the illness only heightened my fear, and I dreaded the possibility of losing him. In a frantic bid for help, I reached for my phone, dialing my husband's number repeatedly. Yet each attempt went unanswered, leaving me to grapple with fear and uncertainty alone. Without a moment to spare, I bypassed waiting for an email response and reached out to my mother for urgent first aid guidance. With her nursing expertise, she was my go-to expert in moments like these. Swiftly following her precise instructions, I fashioned an ice pack and took my son's temperature, finding it alarmingly high at over 102.2 degrees Fahrenheit. Without hesitation, I dialed for an ambulance and tended to my son, ensuring he stayed hydrated while awaiting medical assistance. Concerned about the potential for heat stroke, as my mother had cautioned, I acted swiftly to mitigate any further risks. As the ambulance arrived, I faced the sobering reality that I couldn't accompany my son due to infection precautions. Left with no alternative, I hailed a taxi and hurried to the hospital where he would be treated. Throughout the ordeal, I persisted in attempting to reach my husband, despite knowing the futility of my efforts. Dishearteningly, my attempts went unanswered, prompting me to leave a desperate message online, clinging to the hope that he might see it and respond if he possessed a shred of responsibility. Upon reaching the hospital, I anxiously awaited outside the emergency treatment room, fervently praying for my son's swift recovery. Memories of losing my father in a similar emergency room flooded my mind, igniting fears of losing my son as well. As I grappled with the possibility of another devastating loss, my mother, a steadfast source of support, offered reassurance, her words a comforting refrain amidst the turmoil. An hour later, relief washed over me as I received news of my son's rescue. However, medical advice dictated a week-long hospital stay for his recovery, prompting his transfer to a hospital room. Despite the harrowing ordeal, my husband remained absent, compounding my sense of isolation. Determined to provide for my son's needs, I returned home the following day to gather essentials and decided to bring him some fruit as a gesture of care. Wanting to express gratitude to the doctor who had aided us, I made a detour past the emergency room, only to find chaos unfolding within its confines. Sensing I might be in the way, I postponed my visit to the doctor, turning to head towards my son's room. It was then that I witnessed a startling sight. A man and a woman on a stretcher, their bodies entwined as if caught in a bizarre embrace. The scene hinted at a precarious situation, one where they appeared to be joined together, perhaps a consequence of a mishap during intimate moments. I navigated the chaotic scene, my mind filled with sympathy for those caught in such a vulnerable predicament. The embarrassment of being transported in such a manner must be excruciating, I mused, attempting to pass by discreetly. However, my thoughts were abruptly interrupted as my gaze locked with that of a familiar face. Under ordinary circumstances, the encounter might have been merely awkward. Yet for me, it was nothing short of shocking. My husband lay on the stretcher, his expression betraying surprise at our unexpected reunion. "What are you doing here?" I blurted out, astonishment coloring my voice. Caught off guard, my husband stammered, well, I've caught my sister's cold," his words faltering in the face of my inquiry. Confusion clouded my mind as I grappled with the surreal coincidence of encountering my husband in the same emergency room where our son had been admitted just the day before. Questions swirled in my head as I watched him being transported, unclothed, alongside another woman. Who was she, and why were they together? Amidst my bewilderment, my gaze met the eyes of the woman accompanying my husband. Despite the chaos, a flicker of recognition sparked within me. Even in my state of disarray, I couldn't deny the truth staring back at me. This woman was my husband's mistress. As I glared at her, a familiar voice cut through the tumult, pulling me from my thoughts. "Why on earth is Christina here?" the voice exclaimed. Recognition dawned upon me. Of course, the woman beside my husband was none other than Brenna, his sister. Time seemed to stretch out endlessly as I processed the surreal unfolding of events. Suspicions of my husband's deceit had simmered within me, but I never anticipated this revelation. Even if he had come to check on our son, his entanglement with another woman, especially his own sister, was beyond comprehension. Despite the urge to confront them immediately, the sight of my husband and his sister being wheeled away on a stretcher forced me to restrain myself. I knew they couldn't evade scrutiny, so I resolved to address the situation later. Suppressing the surge of emotions, I redirected my focus to my son, the initial reason for my visit. With a heavy weight settling in my chest, I sought solace in his room, attempting to untangle the jumble of feelings swirling within me. When I checked my phone, it was flooded with messages from my husband, each one attempting to gloss over the situation. Notably absent was any mention of our son's hospitalization. Deciding to continue ignoring him, I waited patiently for another hour. Soon enough, the doctor who had tended to my son the previous day appeared. Their smile was reassuring as they delivered the news. "Your son is doing remarkably well. His recovery is progressing faster than anticipated. His fever has subsided and his condition has stabilized. Initially, we were concerned about the possibility of infection, but it seems he was suffering from heat stroke in addition to a cold." The doctor's praise for my actions brought a sense of validation, even though I knew much of it was owed to my mother's guidance. I made a mental note to express my gratitude to her, perhaps with a thoughtful gift of fancy meat next time. I offered a deep bow of gratitude to the compassionate doctor before me, though beneath my relief for my son's improving health, a storm of anger brewed within me. It was clear that I was about to confront a significant ordeal. As I struggled to contain my emotions, my son's innocent remark about my stern expression snapped me back to composure. I quickly donned a smile for his sake. Mama's face is just pretending to be scary. I'm not scared, I reassured him before stepping away with a promise to return soon. Exiting the hospital, I braced myself for the impending conversation with my husband, who had bombarded me with over 100 missed calls. The moment he answered, a torrent of excuses spilled forth. It wasn't what it looked like. There's an explanation, he'd insisted, attempting to justify his actions. His misplaced priorities only fueled my frustration. Shouldn't his foremost concern be our son's well-being? There's no way a man so absorbed in such a despicable act with his own sister, neglecting our son's well-being, could ever truly care. I muttered to myself, the bitterness evident in my voice. With a husband like him, I feared for our son's future. Recognizing the bleak reality of my husband's character, I made the difficult decision to divorce him. Despite the challenges ahead, I was determined to navigate them for the sake of my son. Turning to face him, I unleashed the pent-up anger that had been simmering within me. So, while our son was suffering, you were preoccupied with that, weren't you? Indulging whenever you had a moment to spare, and with your own sister, no less. It's utterly repulsive, I spat out at him. He stood speechless, unable to offer a defense. Pressing on, I delivered my final blow. Oh, and just so you know, I've already informed your parents. I won't involve your company for now. It would be a shame if you couldn't meet your obligations for alimony and child support. Goodbye, I concluded, severing ties with my husband with those parting words. 3 days later, my son made a full recovery, surpassing all expectations. With the discharge process complete, I returned home, embracing my beloved son's restored health. Naturally, my husband was nowhere to be found. In the aftermath of the ordeal, my husband sought me out to offer his apologies in person. Yet, as he pleaded for forgiveness, I sullenly handed him the divorce papers I had already prepared and signed. This wasn't an isolated incident, I responded, my voice devoid of warmth. I know the truth now. Your sister confessed everything. I anticipated my husband's reluctance to accept the reality of our situation, knowing that our path to divorce wouldn't be easily agreed upon. To confront him and ensure his silence, I decided to approach his sister, who was complicit in the affair. Congratulations on your upcoming wedding ceremony with your boyfriend, I began, masking my disdain with forced politeness. Thank you. I was actually thinking of crafting a clever story to share the news. Would you like to hear it? She replied, oblivious to the gravity of the situation. Are you planning to disclose everything to everyone? I interjected, my tone sharpening. I want the truth to come out. It's time people see you for who you truly are, I retorted with a smirk, relishing the power of my revelation. Please, don't do this. It would destroy my life, she pleaded, a hint of desperation in her voice. Feigning contemplation, I maintained a composed smile as I proposed. I suppose I could keep this under wraps on one condition. How about you disclose every detail of your encounters with my husband? Then perhaps I'll consider staying silent. Though rest assured, your brother will still feel the sting of betrayal. What say you? Without a moment's hesitation, my sister-in-law acquiesced, her desperation palpable. Please spare him the pain. I'll tell you everything, she confessed readily. Confronting my husband with the truth left him reeling, his beloved sister's betrayal cutting him to the core. Overwhelmed, he collapsed from the shock, only to awaken and promptly sign the divorce papers, burdened by the weight of his betrayal. Taking decisive action, I enlisted the aid of a lawyer to secure divorce, custody of our son, and the appropriate financial support. Though my husband initially balked at the demands, a whispered reminder of his potential exposure prompted his compliance. With a heavy heart, he departed the lawyer's office, resigned to the consequences of his actions. Following the revelation of the affair, word somehow reached my husband's workplace, leading to a stern rebuke from his superiors. A month later, he faced the harsh consequence of dismissal, forced to seek employment at a food factory. Now, tasked with adorning cakes with strawberries to fulfill his obligations for alimony and child support, he found himself ostracized among his co-workers, His past indiscretions a constant source of discomfort, fueled by incessant rumors, particularly among younger female colleagues. As for my husband's sister, despite my discretion in withholding the truth, the details of her involvement inevitably surfaced. Her engagement swiftly crumbled under the weight of suspicion when her boyfriend, echoing my own doubts, enlisted the services of a private investigator to uncover the truth. Following the shattered engagement, she found herself facing a hefty compensation demand, forcing her to seek employment at a nightclub to make ends meet. Recently, her ex-boyfriend, perhaps feeling a pang of remorse, handed her a compromising photo of their affair with a casual, "keep it for when you might need it." She couldn't help but marvel at his audacity as she stowed it away in her drawer, a potential leverage should her husband attempt any further indiscretions. In pursuit of a fresh start, she relocated to her parents' home, where she's rebuilding her life with their unwavering support, especially in raising her son. Despite their geographical distance, her parents eagerly offer assistance whenever needed, although she strives not to burden them excessively, reserving their help for times of genuine necessity. Since recovering from that severe fever, my son has enjoyed pristine health, almost as if the ordeal never occurred. Remarkably, he's received awards for perfect attendance 3 years running, seemingly oblivious to the absence of his biological father. Witnessing his contentment each day brings me unparalleled joy. On another note, our family has expanded with the addition of Angel, a charming white cat. Originally a frequent visitor to our yard, Angel quickly endeared himself to me. Reluctant to bid him farewell upon moving, I brought him along to my parents' home. Now, he's formed a close bond with them, becoming an integral part of our family alongside my son. As I sit on the porch, gently stroking Angel's fur, I find solace in the warmth of family and companionship. Watching my son thrive in the loving embrace of my parents, with Angel by our side, fills me with a profound sense of contentment and gratitude for the life we've built together.
That day, I think I was really tired because as soon as I put my daughter, Nia, to bed, I went to my room and fell asleep right away. Later, I woke up suddenly because I heard Nicholas crying. I checked the time on my phone, and it was 1:00 a.m. I felt relieved that I had managed to get a short nap. Feeling exhausted, I got up to comfort Nia. Then, I heard someone shouting, "Shut up, be quiet." It took me a moment to figure out where the voice was coming from. I thought it might be my mother-in-law, Jamie, yelling at me from her room. I responded, "I'm coming to calm her down now," and opened the door to the living room. There, right in front of me, was Jamie, glaring at Nia in the crib. Then suddenly, she slapped Nia's face and said, "That's enough." Shocked, I yelled louder than ever, "What are you doing?" Jamie seemed surprised for a moment and then panicked, saying, "Why didn't you calm her down sooner? This baby is too noisy." I hurried to the crib and picked up Nia to shield her from Jamie. I couldn't believe it. She hit a baby. My name is Candice, and I'm a 28-year-old housewife. I used to work in an office, but now I'm on maternity leave, taking care of the house and our baby. My husband, Miles, and I moved in with my mother-in-law, Jamie, about a year ago. Miles has a demanding job and isn't home much. He was worried about leaving me alone while I was pregnant and felt sorry for Jamie since my father-in-law passed away 2 years ago. So we decided to live with her. At first, everything was okay, but Jamie's true colors started to show, and honestly, it's been tough. "Candy, you're so slow with the housework, and can't you cook better food?" Jamie kept picking on me every chance she got. When Willis, her husband, was alive, visiting my in-laws' house was fine, and I didn't really dislike Jamie. But after Willis passed away and we moved in together, Jamie became incredibly selfish and rude. She'd constantly insult me, saying things like, "Hurry up, you're useless and slow, even ugly." The last part was just cruel and had nothing to do with chores. Being pregnant, it's natural for me to be slower, but Jamie doesn't seem to understand or care. She just wants to harass me. Since Miles, my husband, is mostly away on business trips and doesn't get home until late, I spend most days with Jamie. I kept hoping things would get better once the baby was born. Surely even Jamie, as tough as she is, would soften up around her grandchild. I clung desperately to that hope. I talked to Miles about it on WhatsApp, trying not to bother him too much at work. He always replies with, "I'm sorry, I wish I could be there for you." And he does scold Jamie when they meet. Knowing Miles supports me gives me some comfort, even when I have to endure Jamie's criticism for not doing chores well while pregnant. After safely giving birth to a healthy baby girl, Miles, bless him, managed to arrange time off from work for the birth. He left early and rushed to the hospital. Just before I delivered, as he held our newborn daughter, "She's really cute, like an angel." He looked so happy and said, "I'm thrilled to have a child with a man I love." I messaged Jamie on WhatsApp to share the news of our baby girl's arrival, hoping she'd visit since we lived together. But Jamie didn't come to the hospital, nor did she reply. I started to worry if she wasn't interested in her granddaughter. Could the harassment continue even now? Just as I feared, the door to my hospital room opened. "Candice, how are you feeling?" "Oh, what precious baby. She's a girl, right? She's going to be beautiful." My sister-in-law, Leela, came to visit. Leela is incredibly kind and cheerful, and she's always been good to me. I've always cherished my relationship with her. Since Leela is already married and has children, I had decided to seek her advice on parenting. "What'd you name her?" "Miles, and I decided on Nia." "Oh, that's a lovely name." "Wait, hasn't Mom arrived?" "No, I reached out to her, but she ignored my message." "Ah, I see. She can be difficult sometimes, can't she? Unpredictable and lacking common sense." "Yes, indeed. Leela is direct, and I've always valued that about her. She once told me, 'If you ever struggle living with Mom, don't hesitate to talk to me.' That offer was a lifesaver. So whenever things got tough, I would honestly vent to Leela. She understood Jamie's challenging personality, so she refrained from scolding Jamie based on what I shared, knowing Jamie would take it out on me. That's why she only intervened when absolutely necessary. At that time, simply being able to share my frustrations was enough to ease my stress. Little did I know, things would become even more challenging after Nicola was born. "Jamie, I'm home." When I returned from the hospital with Nicola, Jamie didn't acknowledge her presence at all. Instead, she ordered me to clean right away. I couldn't believe it. It was as if she was pretending Nicola didn't even exist. Despite feeling upset, I placed Nicola in her crib and started cleaning. But within 5 minutes, Jamie called out angrily, "Candy, get over here." "Yes, what is it?" "That baby won't stop crying. Do something about it." I was stunned. Jamie referred to Nicola as that baby, as if she were a nuisance, and ordered me to silence her cries. Jamie continued to mistreat Nicola, demanding that I change her diaper and complaining about the crib being in the way. Each time Jamie yelled, Nicola cried louder in fear, which only angered Jamie more. It created a very tense and uncomfortable atmosphere for Nicola and me. "Jamie, her name is Nicola. Could you please call her by her name?" "Shut up. Don't tell me what to do. You're her mother, so it's your responsibility to take care of her and make sure I'm comfortable." "Look, she's crying again." Nicola started crying because Jamie had yelled just after I had put her to bed. I had to interrupt my chores to comfort Nicola, knowing Jamie would be upset if the housework was delayed. After soothing Nicola and returning to my chores, Jamie complained, "This crib is in the way, taking up so much space," and kicked it. The crib shook, and Nicola woke up crying once again. "What are you doing, Jamie?" I questioned. "Shut up. It's your fault for putting such a big thing here," she snapped back. "But you were the one who told us to move the bed to the living room because it's noisy when she cries in our room at night," I reminded her. "Are you complaining to me now? Stop arguing and soothe that noisy child," she ordered. Calling her that noisy child is really unkind. I had no choice but to carry out my chores while holding Nicola. Balancing housework and childcare without upsetting Jamie was incredibly challenging, and I was becoming increasingly exhausted. If I focused too much on childcare, I'd be scolded for being slow with housework. And if I prioritized chores, I'd be criticized for not parenting properly. Miles had been away on a business trip for about 2 months and wasn't home to support me. I tried reaching out to him through WhatsApp and phone calls, but he was always busy and couldn't talk for long. He apologized many times, saying, "I'm really sorry for the tough times." But I felt guilty for making him apologize when he was working so hard for our family. At the hospital, the doctor examined Nicola and reassured me that while her face was red, there were no signs of bruises or injuries, which eased my worries. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. "What happened? Did you accidentally drop her?" the doctor inquired. I recounted the incident to the doctor. Just then, Layla walked into the room. "Candice, is Nicola all right?" she asked with concern. "Oh, Leela!" I exclaimed. In my frantic state, I had called Leela while in the ambulance. With Miles away on a business trip and unable to rush back immediately, I reached out to Leela despite it being the middle of the night. Leela proceeded to inform the doctor about Jamie's actions towards Nicola. The doctor was visibly shocked, and Leela trembled with anger. The next day, I returned home with Leela. After some hesitation, I entered the house alone. Jamie acted as if nothing had happened and continued to harass me as usual. "You're late. Hurry up and make breakfast," she demanded. "You forgot to take out the trash because you came home late. You really can't keep up with the housework," she criticized. "Enough already. Did you forget what happened yesterday? You hit a 3-month-old baby, remember?" I confronted Jamie, her face flushed with anger. Why should I apologize? That child was the one being noisy. I just slapped her because she wouldn't listen. It's a form of discipline. I thought she wouldn't quiet down otherwise. Jamie defended herself. "That's not discipline, it's violence." "Enough. She's just a baby. Just do your chores already," I responded, feeling exasperated. "You don't seem to regret it at all. You don't even think you did anything wrong." "Leela, please come in," I called out to Leela. She entered the living room, and I couldn't believe what had happened. "Mom, what were you thinking? I can't believe you would do something like that," Leela exclaimed. "No, that's, Jamie was flustered by Leela's sudden intervention. "Mom, you do realize that what you did is legally punishable, right?" Jamie's face paled at Leela's words. "Leela, you're not seriously considering suing your own mother, are you?" she pleaded. "I won't be the one suing. Candice will. I'll simply act as her lawyer," Leela responded firmly. "But wait, it was just a form of discipline," Jamie tried to justify. "Who would see hitting a baby as discipline? This is assault," I interjected, firm in my stance. No matter how hard Jamie tried to rationalize her actions, they could never be excused. "I will definitely pursue legal action against you. Be prepared," I informed Jamie. Jamie began to cry softly. "I'm sorry, Candice. I always lose control when I'm angry and end up regretting it later. I've always felt guilty about how I treated you and Nina. I truly am sorry for what happened." Why did I raise my hand to her? I always wanted a boy as the eldest grandchild. It was Willis' wish too. It might be an old-fashioned idea, but we always hoped for a boy to carry on the family line. And when a girl was born instead, I was happy about having a granddaughter, but also felt like I failed to fulfill a promise to Willis. Every time I got angry, I couldn't control myself. "I'm truly sorry," Jamie confessed through her tears. "Please, Candice, help me change." "I'll do anything," Jamie pleaded, offering a heartfelt apology. "Jamie, please try to calm down. Let's have a proper conversation," I urged, hoping to diffuse the tension. "No, I've done something unforgivable. No amount of apologies will ever be enough." Jamie continued to apologize fervently. My heart wavered, and I almost forgave her, but then Leela intervened. "Don't be fooled, Candice. Mom always puts on this act of deep remorse when she's caught in a corner just to escape criticism," Leela explained. "What? She did the same thing when Dad found out about her affair. He fell for her act and forgave her, but her tears dried up immediately afterward. This is probably just another performance, right? You can't fool me, Lila declared, causing Jamie to falter. What are you implying, Lila? Upon closer inspection, Jamie's tears, which had been flowing moments ago, had already ceased. It was likely fake crying. Jamie, I can't forgive you anymore. How twisted must you be to try to worm your way out of what you've done? I exclaimed. Wait a minute. I'm not trying to escape anything. Jamie protested. Okay, I understand. But we've already decided to take legal action, I stated firmly. Jamie's face reddened with anger. Don't play games with me. Why should I be subjected to this treatment by a daughter-in-law like you? How dare you? Just then, we heard the sound of the house key turning. Candice, is Nicola safe? It was Miles. Why are you here? I exclaimed in surprise. I had only contacted him on WhatsApp and thought he couldn't come because he was on a business trip. I had called him several times in the middle of the night. Yet here he was, having driven straight here since 3:00 a.m. and arriving this morning. I didn't expect Miles to be there too. Mom, stop it. I've heard about your mistreatment of Candice, and I've warned you about it multiple times, haven't I? And now you've gone and hurt my precious Nicola. I can't forgive you for this, Mom, Miles said firmly. Are you blaming me too? How cruel. After all I did raising you and Lila, Jamie retorted defensively. What are you talking about? You were hardly ever there for us. It was always Aunt who took care of us. Our memories are filled with the meals Aunt cooked. Not you, Mom, Miles replied, his tone tinged with frustration. Just stop it. Plus, I think the doctor already reported it yesterday, Miles added. The hospital knows Mom hurt her, so it's only a matter of time before the police get involved. Lila chimed in. No, wait. Are you okay with your mother getting arrested? Jamie pleaded, panic evident in her voice. I'd rather not have someone who hurts a 3-month-old baby around, no matter what you say, Mom. You don't have anyone on your side now, Miles stated firmly. Jamie finally seemed to grasp the severity of her situation. Her face drained of color as she slumped in defeat. Soon after, the police arrived, and Jamie was taken into custody. As a first-time offender, she received a suspended sentence. However, Miles and Lila decided to cut ties with her and obtained restraining orders against her. Miles moved out of the in-laws' house with me and Nicola and rented an apartment. During our search for a new place, we temporarily stayed with Lila, which was immensely helpful. Candice, I'm truly sorry for everything. I'll take parental leave if necessary. I'll switch departments or even jobs to ensure your and Nicola's safety, Miles assured me. His current workplace had some issues with its environment, making it challenging for him to secure parental leave. Consequently, he resigned and found employment elsewhere. Now he returns home on time and actively helps with Nicola and household chores. We reside in a high-rise near Lila's family, often gathering for meals or enjoying barbecues together. As for Jamie, I'm not sure about her current situation, but according to neighbors, she has become completely isolated since her arrest and rarely ventures outside. It seems that her prideful nature cannot handle being associated with such reprehensible actions. However, her whereabouts no longer concern me, and since she doesn't know our new address, the chances of encountering her unexpectedly are slim. My focus now is on living happily and supporting each other as a family with Miles, Nicola, and Lila's family.
I got married to a man who liked me even though I was fragile and shy. I thought we were happy, but while I was in the hospital, my husband met a beautiful divorced woman. He decided to leave me, saying I didn't work and wanted $800 a month as compensation. He went ahead with the divorce coldly. My name's Michelle, and I quietly work in an office at a real estate company. I've never been particularly interested in real estate or office work. Since I was a kid, I've been physically weak and sometimes end up in the hospital because of my internal organs, though it's not life-threatening. People were worried if I could work, especially with my health issues, but my parents suggested I try office work. I've been managing fine, even with occasional hospital stays. I've been doing well at my job, and my colleagues understand my situation. I met my husband Tony at a social gathering set up by a friend, kind of like a group blind date. I wasn't sure about romance because I thought my fragility would be a problem for anyone. I didn't date much, and before I knew it, I was over 30. My friend encouraged me, saying, "You should find someone who understands you, Michelle. Your condition doesn't affect your daily life much. Let's stay positive." So she invited me to an event. I didn't think it would work out. There were 3 men, one of whom I liked, but he seemed interested in another woman. I didn't feel particularly attractive, and the other women there seemed prettier. I had given up on finding someone there, but then Tony, who later became my husband, approached me. He was thoughtful, offering me soft drinks since I didn't drink much. But as I listened to him, I realized he wasn't the one I wanted to be close to. I dreamed of marrying someone like a top actress. Hearing his confidence made me wonder about him and even feel a bit repelled. However, despite that, he kept talking to me. He asked, "What kind of guy do you like, Michelle? Do you want to get married?" Because I was eager to get married soon, Tony kept talking to me, showing persistence. At first, I thought he was shallow, but we exchanged contacts. Surprisingly, Tony kept contacting me frequently, even asking me out. Gradually, my feelings for him grew. However, I was still worried. Why would a man with high standards and a seemingly shallow nature be interested in someone like me? When I shared my concerns about my fragile health with a friend, they explained that guys often want to appear strong and impressive at first. Despite that, my friend said Tony really seemed to like me. Believing this, I started to see Tony differently, and we grew closer. Eventually, we got married, and our first year together was truly happy. We lived in a spacious and affordable apartment that I found. Interestingly, my health issues almost disappeared, and I didn't have to go to the hospital while I was with Tony. Maybe being with him helped improve my health. Tony was considerate, and I felt confident that marrying him was the right decision. However, after a year, I started noticing changes in Tony's attitude towards me despite my weak health. ChatGPT, I managed to do basic housework, and I always cooked meals. Tony used to praise my cooking, which made me happy. But gradually, he stopped complimenting and even started complaining about the food. He'd say things like, "Is the soup a bit bland today?" Or, "I'm not really in the mood for meat today." I'm not great at cooking, so making the same tasty meal every day is tough. But until then, he never complained. Also, I can't guess what Tony wants to eat unless he tells me. I was shocked when he said he wasn't in the mood for something. Still, I loved Tony and wanted to meet his expectations. However, his attitude towards me got worse. When he came home from work, he used to cheerfully greet me with, "I'm home. Worked hard today." But he stopped doing that and instead said, "I'm tired. I want to do something fun," showing no interest. Our habit of going out on days off also disappeared. When I suggested going somewhere, he'd coldly reply, "I'm too tired to go anywhere. If you want to go, go by yourself." His behavior seemed odd, and I started feeling my health deteriorating again. It's like my body reflected my growing anxiety. Then Tony started coming home late from work and going out with friends on his days off, saying he wanted to rest. "I'll be back soon," disregarding me entirely. This behavior went beyond just being odd. It started to breed distrust in me. At the same time, my physical condition began to resemble the times I had health issues in the past. If this continued, I would end up hospitalized again, and I wanted to avoid that. Hospital stays usually last about 2 weeks, something I'd rather avoid. So I wanted to talk to Tony about our situation. One day when he returned from an errand, I asked him honestly, "Hey, you've been acting strange, haven't you? You're cold towards me. Have you started to dislike me? If you have something to say, say it. Otherwise, I'll go crazy." But he, perhaps drunk, bluntly spoke his true feelings to me, saying, "I'm not doing anything with you. I haven't started to hate you, but I don't love you anymore. Are you misunderstanding something? I dated you and even married you, you know. Besides, your income is low. I'm just stressed because there's nothing fun to do." He spoke in a detached manner. His clear and blunt words left me speechless and caused deep emotional hurt. The anger and sadness that followed were overwhelming. It was as if he didn't care about me anymore. Essentially, he had reluctantly dated and married me. This reminded me of when we first met at the mixer. I realized he had his sights on another woman. When she showed interest in another man, he turned to me, the leftover one. I thought his eagerness to marry was genuine, and I was his only viable option at that time. My fears about him being frivolous and not serious about someone like me were confirmed. As these thoughts raced through my mind, my health worsened. There was one thing I wanted to correct in Tony's words, but I no longer felt the need or desire to say it. Not wanting Tony's care, I called my workplace to inform them of my impending episode and took a taxi to the hospital. After a 2-week stay, I returned home still uncertain about how to proceed with Tony. But upon my return, he said something completely unexpected. "Oh, you're back. Did you get some rest?" I was surprised. "I knew you were weak, but I didn't expect you to be hospitalized." His way of speaking showed no concern for me at all. Thinking back, he never visited me once while I was in the hospital. True, I hadn't mentioned frequent hospitalizations when we were dating, and this was my first hospitalization since we had been together. Maybe that's why he reacted this way. But his shocking statements were yet to come. "But taking it easy in the hospital, that's a nice life, huh? Earning so little and still taking time off. Naturally, your income will decrease. I don't want to continue this boring life anymore. I'm done. A wife who doesn't work is worthless. Let's get a divorce." Tony said this without any remorse. I was dumbstruck by his sudden declaration. Then he added, "Actually, I decided something while you were in the hospital. I've decided to marry this woman." He showed me a photo on his smartphone of a very beautiful woman, his new girlfriend. It confirmed what I always knew. He likes beautiful women. This woman is my childhood friend. I was surprised at how beautiful she's become when we met by chance recently. He grinned as he explained this to me. Moreover, regarding our separation, he said, "The reason for the divorce is your fault. I'm the victim because I have a wife who doesn't work. So you should pay me compensation of $800 a month. It's your punishment for using me for so long." He expected me to pay despite thinking my income was low and him, the victim. How twisted could his thinking be? I was shocked to face such a situation soon after returning from the hospital, but I quickly regained my composure and honestly thought, this means I can separate from him right away. Deep down, I had already reached this conclusion. It's best to part ways with him. But divorcing so soon after getting married. Surprisingly, I was conscious of what others would think. However, his current behavior was a wake-up call. I decided to accept his demands, so I took out the divorce papers I had prepared earlier, signed my name, and handed them to him. "All right, if you have a new fiancé, I understand. Here are the divorce papers. Sign them quickly," I said. He looked surprised for once and said, "Oh, that was quick. Sometimes you do think. Now we can get divorced." He signed the papers, grinning, and handed them back to me, saying, "Don't forget about the compensation. Start transferring it by the end of this month." Then he went back to his room. He must have been surprised. He didn't expect me to comply so easily. But I had been contemplating divorce anyway. It was just a matter of time. However, I hadn't accepted everything he said. Compensation, that's another story which he'll realize later. A week or so after moving out of the house I shared with Tony, my health was stable, and I was going about my daily life. After work one day, I checked my phone and saw over 200 missed calls from an unknown number. What? Over 200 missed calls? When I opened the history, Tony's name was listed repeatedly. Seeing this, I couldn't help but feel relieved because I knew why he had been calling. When I called him back, his panic was obvious. "Hey, I got a demand for $50,000 in compensation. That's too much, don't you think?" But how could he not understand without an explanation? "Well, you were cheating on me with your fiancé. While we were still married, right?" Was her name Hillary Johnson? "She's really beautiful, isn't she?" He was flustered when I mentioned her name. "What are you talking about? More importantly, how do you know her name?" The answer was simple. Why do I know? Because I hired a detective. Your actions were obviously suspicious, so I decided to ask for a little help. They contacted me right away, saying it was a definite case. They even showed me proof photos. According to the latest information, you had her stay over at our house just 3 days ago. Right, by the way, I filed for divorce the day before yesterday, so we were still married 3 days ago. Telling him this, he looked like he was about to explode. He had demanded compensation from me, but this was why I refused to accept that part. Detectives are amazing, but they sure cost a lot of money. When I mentioned that, he nervously asked, "That's true, but you don't have that kind of money, do you?" But that was just his misconception. Indeed, my salary as an office worker wasn't significant, but now I'm ready to reveal the truth. I wanted to counter when he called me low income, but I do have about $400,000 in rental income. The reason being, my father is the president of the real estate company. I work for the company passed down from my great-grandfather, which owns roughly 100 buildings and apartments. My father put several of those properties in my name, perhaps his way of showing love. So, the rent from those properties goes into my account. However, he always told me to do my best in my office job. Tony always assumed I was just a weak, low-income office worker but was quite shocked to learn the truth. Seriously, you should have said that earlier. He realized he had let go of a big fish. If he had treasured me, he could have had a lot of fun, but his misfortune didn't end there. So, the apartment you're living in now is actually mine. I just picked it because it was vacant. That's why there was no rent, but if you continue living there, the rent is $2,000 a month. Looks like your entire monthly salary is going to be gone. He always claimed I was low income, but his salary wasn't great either. That's why I chose one of my properties for him. Now it might be too late to tell him. And then another tragedy struck him. The beautiful fiancée, Hillary, apparently got to know the truth. It seems she was being claimed for compensation as his affair partner. And naturally, the engagement was called off, and she disappeared from Tony's life. Tony, having spent his meager salary and even borrowed money to impress Hillary, ended up with nothing in the end. It's a result of his arrogance and lack of effort, thinking he could land a big catch without trying. As a result, Tony lost his wife, his home, and his new fiancée in an instant. All that remained was his considerable debt. Finally, he said to me, "Hey, let's give it another try. You're the one for me, after all." Such a desperate statement. But without it, he would have an even more boring life than before. However, as far as I'm concerned, he no longer means anything to me. But you would say you were just with me because you had no choice, right? Don't worry about me. I'll be fine. I replied casually and decided to end the call. His calls continued, but they were so annoying that I blocked his number. Since then, he has been evicted from the apartment and lives in a shabby place, struggling with debt. He works from morning till night, but another hardship hit him. Hillary's acquaintances, tough-looking guys, found out where he lived and started threatening him. You're going to pay the compensation she's being charged with too. While their methods are forceful, what they say isn't unreasonable. After all, Hillary was deceived. Thus, Tony's debt only grew. Now he's so dispirited that no one wants anything to do with him. As for me, I'm in good health, free from major stress. The episodes have stopped, and overcoming this huge obstacle has perhaps made me mentally stronger. My office work no longer suffers, and my parents are happy. Now I focus on not stressing myself and being honest with my feelings. When asked about my next relationship, I think I'll stay away from it for a while. Work has become enjoyable, and I find it fulfilling. Before thinking about romance, I plan to travel, something I couldn't do before due to my health concerns.